Think about the last time you walked into a room where there were other people, your partner, a friend, someone visiting, and your dog came to you. Not the most excited person in the room, not the one who got down on the floor and called their name. I noticed this with Noodle. He's 8 years old, a Chihuahua, and he has what I'd politely call a low-energy morning. He'll stay on his rug when my partner walks through. He'll stay on his rug when the neighbor knocks. But when I come down the stairs, there's this little lift of the head. Just that, and then he gets up. For years, I thought that was about the food. I'm the one who fills his bowl. I figured I was just Pavlov in a flannel shirt. I was wrong. And the more I've read about this, and I've read a lot, probably too much, the more I think most of us have the explanation backwards. Because dogs aren't bonding to the person who feeds them. They're bonding to something much more specific than that. And once you understand the mechanism, the whole thing becomes a little harder to take for granted. Today we're going into the science of how dogs choose a favorite person. And I want you to stay to the end, because the last part reframes the whole thing in a way I didn't see coming the first time I read it. Your dog has a preferred person. If you share your home with multiple humans, you've probably seen it. The one they follow from room to room, the one whose footsteps they recognize from the next floor up, the one they check on during walks, the one they go to first when something startles them. It isn't random. It isn't mood-dependent. It's consistent. Researchers who study canine social behavior call this a primary attachment figure. It's the same term used in human infant research, and that parallel isn't an accident. Dogs, like young children, organize the people in their lives into a hierarchy, and at the top of that hierarchy is one specific person. The behavioral markers are the same: proximity seeking, looking back during stress, reacting most strongly when that specific person leaves. This is not a dog that just wants company. This is not a dog that will take affection from whoever offers it. This is a dog that has made a specific selection, quietly, without ceremony, and usually without you noticing it happen. What this is also not is a dog being cold toward everyone else. Noodle is polite to my partner. He likes the neighbor. He tolerates visitors with reasonable grace. But there's a difference between being liked and being chosen. And dogs understand that difference better than we give them credit for. Behavioral researchers like Alexandra Horowitz have made this point plainly. Dogs are not indiscriminate in their attachment. They are specific. They pick. The question that took me a long time to ask clearly is, on what basis? Here's the part I got wrong for a long time. The assumption most of us carry, and I carried it for years, is that the bond follows the food. You fill the bowl, you earn the loyalty. It made a certain kind of sense to me. I'm the one who feeds Noodle. I always have been. The assumption has roots in how early animal behaviorists thought about attachment. Harry Harlow, working with infant rhesus monkeys at the University of Wisconsin in the late 1950s, showed something that upended the conventional wisdom of his time. Given a choice between a wire surrogate that provided food and a cloth one that provided only warmth and contact, the young monkeys went to the cloth one. Every time. Comfort and contact, not feeding, were what formed the bond. That work shook the field, and while dogs aren't monkeys, it pointed behavioral science towards something that's held up. What an animal is actually attaching to is the quality of close, positive interaction, not simply who holds the resource. For dogs, the behavioral consensus has landed in a consistent place. The person a dog bonds most deeply to tends to be the person who engages them most meaningfully. Play, training sessions, even short ones, long, unhurried presence, physical contact that isn't rushed. The person who talks to them, makes eye contact, responds, notices. This isn't about the food bowl. It isn't about the schedule. It isn't about being useful. It's about being present. I did this wrong with Noodle for a while. I was efficient. I fed him, walked him on a good schedule, kept him healthy. What I wasn't doing, and what my partner was, gradually, without planning to, was sitting with him. Not for any reason. Just sitting. Now, to be fair, personality and energy levels matter too. Some dogs just naturally click with the quiet person, others want the runner. But at the foundation? The kinder version of this isn't guilt. It's permission. You don't have to be the feeder to be the chosen one. Now here's where it gets interesting. Stay with me here, because this is the part that made me rethink everything. Brian Hare runs the Duke Canine Cognition Center, and his work has shaped how I think about dogs as much as anything I've read. The short version: dogs can do something that no other animal, not wolves, not chimpanzees, not any of our closest primate relatives, can do to the same degree. They can follow a human-pointing gesture. That sounds small. It isn't. If I point at something across the room, a chimpanzee typically looks at my hand. A wolf looks at my hand. Your dog looks where I'm pointing. They understand that the gesture is communicating direction, information about something somewhere else. Wolves raised alongside humans still can't do this reliably. Dogs can. This capacity emerged through domestication, through more than 10,000 years of dogs living alongside us and learning to read us. What this suggests is that if they can read us that well, it makes sense that they're running a continuous social scan of the people around them. They're reading faces, tracking attention, noticing who looks at them, who responds, who's genuinely oriented toward them versus who's present but checked out. Experts like John Bradshaw, who has written extensively on dog behavior, describe dogs as extraordinarily socially intelligent, not in an abstract way, but in the specific practical sense of reading human signals with unusual precision. Think about the last time you were distracted, scrolling, half watching something, and your dog came and sat next to you. You patted them twice and went back to your screen. That registered, not as anything harsh, just as data. And when you contrast that with the person in your home who, when the dog comes over, puts down what they're doing and actually looks at them, even for 30 seconds, your dog is logging the difference. They're always logging it. The person who gives your dog the richest, most consistent, most responsive social input, that is the person they bond to. The food bowl is a signal. The attention is the foundation. A landmark 2015 study published in Science at Azabu University in Japan found that when dogs and their established owners engaged in mutual gazing, oxytocin levels rose in both. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone, the same one active in mother-infant attachment. Interestingly, wolves showed almost none of this effect with their human handlers. It appears to be something that evolved in dogs specifically through domestication. This is not a reward mechanism. This is not your dog performing affection for future benefit. This isn't just a trick they learned to get a treat. It's a loop, a biochemical loop that runs between a dog and a specific person every time they look at each other genuinely, and it deepens the more it runs. There's one more layer to this, and I want to be honest about it without overstating it. What this means for your dog starts young. The critical socialization window in puppies, the period when their brains are most open to forming associations, runs roughly from 3 to 12 weeks old. What happens during that window shapes a dog's baseline capacities for human bonding. Puppies who have warm, consistent contact with people during that period develop a much stronger foundation for deep attachment than those who don't. If you were there during those weeks, on the floor, at eye level, patient, you were doing something neurologically significant. Most of us didn't know that at the time, but here's what I want to make sure doesn't get lost. The window shapes the capacities. What you do with your dog every day of their life determines the target. Dogs adopted as adults, dogs who maybe didn't have ideal early socialization, who came from shelters or complicated histories, can still form genuine, deep primary attachments to a specific person. It takes more time, it asks more consistency. But the door doesn't close at 12 weeks. It's just easier to walk through when it's wide open. I mentioned this to Dr. Hale, my own vet, during one of Noodle's checkups last year, and she said something that stuck with me. The biology is always willing. What matters is whether the relationship gives it something to work with. And once you understand what a bond actually forms around, the attention, the engagement, the consistent and quiet showing up, you realize you have more influence over this than most people think. About 3 months after my partner started doing all of Sesame's training sessions, 20 minutes every evening, nothing complicated, just working through the basics. Sesame started sitting at the back door before my partner's car turned onto our street, not my car. My partner's. I noticed it the first time and told myself it was coincidence. The second time, I started watching. The third time, I checked the clock. Sesame was at that door 9 minutes before my partner got home. consistent, every time, just sitting there, facing the door. I'm not the one who ran those sessions. I tried a few early on, but my partner took it over, and I was glad someone had the patience. What I didn't account for was what 20 minutes of daily attentive presence does to the inside of a young dog's head. What it builds, what it earns. Here's the thing about a dog choosing you. The science can walk you through every step. The social scan, the oxytocin loop, the 10,000 years of learning to read human faces. It can describe the mechanism in precise detail. But when Noodle gets up off that rug, not for my partner, not for anyone else who walks through, for me specifically, this small old dog with his small dog's whole body reorienting toward the stairs, I find that the mechanism isn't what I care about. What I care about is that something was paying attention, something was keeping track, something with no language and no calendar decided. Whoever your dog chose didn't stumble into it. They built it, probably without realizing they were building anything at all. The sideways glances, the training sessions, the mornings that were mostly one-sided conversation, the time they just sat. That's the currency of this. And dogs keep careful accounts. Maybe I'm reading too much into a small dog. Maybe not. I've stopped trying to settle it. Is there a person in your home, maybe you, maybe someone you love, maybe someone who would be genuinely surprised to hear it, who your dog has clearly decided on? Tell me how it shows. I'd love to know. I read every one of them. I always do. See you in the next one.